There we go. These are simply my opinions, and we'll just leave it at that. I will be presenting some diagrams. They don't represent the superiority of any order or degree. We can save that for another exciting Facebook discussion, along with which way we wear our ring. I see that we have brethren here from different international jurisdictions. We should note that my discussion this evening is for the United States only. We each have different prerequisites, different customs, even different rituals, as we'll point out in one of our slides. So these are simply relative to what we do here in the United States. With maybe occasionally we'll mention something else. And our discussion will refer to the ritual only obliquely. This is both as a public lecture that we're giving this evening, but as a matter of respect as well, and to preserve the experience for those who may be a candidate for these degrees and orders, so we don't detract from the excitement and the initiatory experience. I will note various themes. We can look at degrees and orders in terms of the thematic element, the purpose of that particular ritual, the organization of the order, its history, whether it's invitational, whether it's one we would describe as chivalric, or one that we would describe as Christian in requirements, and the prerequisites of a particular order. Many of us have either informal or formal, what we call chair degrees or ceremonies after one serves in a particular office. Some of these are listed here. We have a plethora of fun degrees, such as the Black Llama, which of course does not refer to any particular junior grand warden, past or present of New York. That's an inside joke that I've taken advantage of at his expense. I've chosen to begin with the Royal Arch, as it's the prerequisite for many of the further orders. Indeed, some Grand Lodges consider it as part of pure ancient Freemasonry. If we look at this chart, the right-hand side is, but for AMD, or Allied Masonic degrees, at the bottom, for the Christian bodies. We often hear that Knights Templar, or KT, is the, quote, Christian order, close quotes. Well, there are a number of others, and it's useful to consider them in that light. If you'll note at the top right, the Order of Acon requires the Holy Royal Arch and Knight Templar, but not Cryptic or Royal and Select. We'll begin by working our way down the right-hand side with St. Thomas of Acon, our first chivalric order. It's organized into chapels. It was created in 1974, but based on the medieval order. The dress is a white tunic and a crimson velvet hat, similar to that seen in Prince Hall affiliate chapters and council, or the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite for the southern jurisdiction. The ritual is based upon the acts of Thomas of Becket, and in my view teaches an excellent lesson of both humility and charity and compassion. It is one of the orders that is governed from England, and the United States is organized as a province of the Masonic order. The Holy Royal Arch Knight Templar Priest are another invitational and Christian body. It is one in which the membership is limited, in this case, to 33 in each tabernacle. The number of tabernacles in a jurisdiction then being based on the population of the Knights Templar of that jurisdiction. The current evidence appears to indicate elements of the ritual were actually worked in Ireland in the late 18th century. According to Voorhees, the first mention of the order in the US is 1829 in Rhode Island. The Grand College of America was then formed in 1931. The presiding officer is the most eminent Grand Preceptor. The official insignia is the Purple Cross of Salem, superimposed on which is the Scarlet Delta. Both are edged in gold. It exercised control over some 33 degrees, most of which are conferred by name. The degrees are both chivalric and abundantly religious in nature. If you attend Masonic Week, and you should sometime, you will often see the presiding officer wearing a mitre with a cross on it. Another order governed from the UK, in this instance from Scotland, the Provincial Grand Lodge of the United States was founded in 1877. The first two provincial Grand Masters were Albert Pike and Joshua Drummond. There are no chapters under a provincial Grand Lodge. It is the sole conferral authority in a particular jurisdiction. The order has 2 degrees, the Eardom of Kilwinning and the Rosy Cross. The tradition of the order dates to Bannockburn in 1314, and the King of Scotland remains the hereditary head of the order. Thus, the order today is ruled by a deputy Grand Master. The provable history of the order dates from the 18th century. The ritual, in my experience, is unique, with metered rhyme making up the largest part of it. It's quite enjoyable, and the provincial team in the United States does a superb job. We often talk of service to the fraternity. The York Rite Sovereign College of North America has that as its stated purpose. It's an honor organization, invitational, requiring membership in all the York Rite bodies. Organized in 1957 at perhaps the height of Masonic activity in the United States, it is organized at the local level into colleges, is presided over at the national level by a governor general. The ritual revolves around the legendary meeting at York, presided over by King Athelstan. This, if you can see the top of it, is a shout out to my homies in Oklahoma. The Knight York Cross of Honor, or KYCH as we all often abbreviate it, requires the invited candidate to preside over a craft lodge and chapter, council in those jurisdictions having a separate council, and commandery or preceptory. The induction ceremony for the Knight York Cross of Honor is not a degree and does not contain an obligation. Convent General is presided over by a Grand Master General, and local units are priories, with the not unexpected presiding officer being denominated a prior. Knights may become Grand Cross by serving as the presiding Grand Officer of one of the 4 bodies. And you will see quadrants in the jewel filled in as the grand office of that particular body is filled by the member. Governing the United States, Mexico, and the Philippines, and part of Central America, the Red Cross of Constantine is our last Christian chivalric order, but it only requires Royal Arch membership. Conclaves are limited in membership, with the presiding officer known as a puissant sovereign. The conclaves are organized in divisions, usually by state, with an intendant general representing the grand sovereign in that division. The ritual is based upon the Emperor Constantine and the legend of his vision of the cross before battle. legend that you find in other historical figures as well. Knight Masons is the first of the chivalric side degrees without a religious prerequisite. The Knight Masons were formally established in 1923 and brought in degrees previously worked in Royal Arch chapters, Knight Templar preceptories, as well as a Rose Croix chapter. The Grand Council here in the United States was organized in 1967. Presided over by an excellent chief, councils confer 3 degrees: Knight of the Sword, of the East, and of the East and West. The rituals continue the legends of workers at the Temple of Solomon in different eras. You will also see these referred to as the green degrees, referring to the body's origin in Ireland. The Order of Athelstan, like Acon and some of the other orders we will consider under Allied Masonic degrees, is a more recent import from England. Based on the legend of King Athelstan, it was formed in 2005. The ritual has some source, though, in older rituals. Meetings are typically 3 times a year, with the Grand Court being divided into provinces, of which the United States is one, and the local units also formed as courts. The Masonic Order of Athelstan portrays the story of a master mason called to York in 926 to receive the ancient charges. The initiation ritual goes on through a series of rituals to explain a great deal of symbolism that we still see in lodges today, and culminates with an historical oration taking us through the development of the various Grand Lodges, ending in 1813 with the formation of the United Grand Lodge of England. We just say the operatives typically when we refer to the Worshipful Society of Freemasons, Rough Masons, Wallers, Slaters, Pavers, Plasterers, and Bricklayers, for the reason you just heard. This ritual really is one of my favorites, as it has both simplicity but is singular in its operation. The website for this actually has a reenactment of some of the ritual available on it. The operatives deal with the death of our Grandmaster Hiram in a different manner than seen in craft masonry. In a ritualistic drama, it is the 3rd Grandmaster Mason who is ritualistic slain each year. The goal of this unique organization is to preserve the operative ritual, that of the Guild Masons. It is ruled by 3 Grand Masters. The regalia is minimal. The society, by history, was relatively quiescent until the late 20th century. It's governed by a grand assemblage, then governed in regions, including one for the United States, with local assemblages. There are 7 grades, the final being in the discretion of the 3 Grand Master Masons. Relatively unknown in the United States, this order also consists of 3 degrees, the entry degree being that of Pilgrim, describing the transmission of Freemasonry from Jerusalem to Rome. The next degree, Preceptor, describes the journey from Rome to England. Scots may have some issue with the legend describing the transmission of the craft to England, but this is their ritual. It's another order which has come to the US recently. It originated in the late 1920s and was moribund until 1984. The local units are conclaves, and it has a relatively simple ritual, and one must be a Royal Arch Mason. As you know, it took some time for our Masonic degrees to solidify. Indeed, that was one of the issues in the division between the ancients and the moderns. And so we now come to one of the most important orders, the Allied Masonic degrees. In the United States, many of our detached degrees were conferred under craft warrants and formed part of the then loosely governed Freemasonry of the period. Indeed, some of them were subsequently drafted for allied Masonic degrees rather than being found in early ritual. Nevertheless, we find that some of the degrees have elements as early as 1790s. Some of the degrees are found in similar form in other degree symptoms. Consequently, for those who study the earlier rituals and their evolution, this order provides a useful context. You will also find transmission to other countries from the Allied Masonic degrees of the United States, as in the Grand Architect degree, which was found in England some 100 years after its appearance in the United States. Consequently, we find moral lessons taught not only in the situation of King Solomon's temple and the Hiramic legend, but in other constructs as well. But there's more. In addition to having degrees under the Allied Masonic degrees, we have three separate orders that we've listed: the Order of the Secret Monitor, Order of the Scarlet Cord, and the Red Branch of Erie. In other countries, they may be separate stand-alone orders or included in another order. This gives an example of how the Allied Masonic degrees and orders are handled in some of the different jurisdictions. The slide here that was provided by our Grand Secretary, Clyde Schofield of Oklahoma, doesn't have, as you see, France or India on it, two of our newer Grand Councils. In England, this degree is the degree upon which the AMD Council is opened. The US has a separate ceremony for opening the council. The actual date when this ritual was introduced isn't known, but it is believed to have been worked in England over 2 centuries ago. It has been generally accepted that the degree has remnants of an old operative ceremony originating in Lancashire and designed to distinguish true craftsmen from speculative Masons. While the degree has little Masonic connection to the Hiramic legend, its interesting legend relates to the martyrdom of St. Lawrence. It has a clever turn of phrase, and of course, as you likely are aware, St. Lawrence was later canonized for his fidelity and Christian attributes. In a single word, its lesson is fortitude. A separate grand body under the mark in England, where I received the degree, in Cheshire. In Scotland, it is under the Royal Arch and is part of the Allied Masonic degrees in the United States. This is another ritual that I particularly enjoy, as it teaches much the same lessons as the Hiramic legend, but casts them in a different scenario so that we have the opportunity to again reflect on the degrees that we've covered. The grade of architect in the Allied Masonic degrees is the first of a trilogy of grades expanding on the solemn lessons of architecture. We can find it worked in early Scottish ritual. It was attached to the Grand Council of the Allied Masonic degrees as an active degree in 1934. The degree itself is rather short, and the work resembles that performed in craft masonry. The lecture or explanation, however, takes the form of a catechism between the principal officers, as you may see in some older rituals. The ritual is also punctuated when done in full form with circumambulations and floor work, and if it were followed verbatim as prescribed in the ritual, it would make the grade, in my view, somewhat cumbersome. If you have an architect, well, of course, we need to have a grand architect. It continues the sequence, and it is again found in early ritual of Scotland under the same name. The concluding degree of this trilogy is that of superintendent. We do not know the origin of the degree. This is a modern degree originating in North Carolina in the United States. It does not appear in the early United States AMD rituals, and it was incorporated into the working along with the grades of superintendent, architect, and grand architect. It was initially worked under the title Masons of Tyre, with the idea being to function as a completely separate body of masonry. The initial qualifications only were good standing in the craft. The organization was to operate under the direction of a supreme quarry. Problems arose with the Grand Lodge of North Carolina, which viewed the body as an alternate Masonic organization that encroached on their sovereignty. To avoid any further dissension, the organization placed itself under the government of the Grand Council of the Allied Masonic degrees in the United States. Those who look at the history of the formation of our Allied Masonic degrees will understand the importance of the Carolinas in their foundation. This degree is set around long lectures with the emphasis on the Tyrrhenian connection of Masonry. The main lesson taught is that of duty. The grade of Excellent Master is at least as old as 1769, when in St. Andrew's Chapter, Boston, a brother was, quote, made by receiving the 4 steps, that of an excellent, super excellent, Royal Arch, and Knight Templar. The ritual used in the United States is the Scottish work, and is an important preface to the Royal Arch in sequence. Having passed through the 3 veils in Babylon, there is necessity at Jerusalem only to enter the 4th, or white veil. Well, the Grand Tylers of Solomon, there can be little doubt that this grade and the grade of Select Master owe their origin to a common source. In his Masonic Orations, published in 1803, Dalcho mentions that in addition to the regular degrees is Select Master of 27. Elsewhere, there's mention of Select Mason of 27, indicating that the grade which we now work as Grand Tyler Solomon is or has a very close resemblance to the present day Select Master. This degree is an authentic side degree, where it was customary for one brother to confer it upon another, and while it is known to have been working in the United States in 1831, its actual origin is unknown. The ritual attempts to connect the legendary Constantine with the Masonic fraternity and teaches a fine lesson in universal equality and humility. It also incorporates a suggestion of operative influence in an extensive lecture that also imbues the lesson of justice. Let's then turn to the orders under the Allied Masonic degrees of the United States. The Order of the Secret Monitor is the first. As early as 1778, there was a society in Holland known as the Order of Jonathan and David, which probably furnished the germ for the origin of the American grade, now known as the Secret Monitor. The lesson it makes is one of my favorite degrees and forms the basis of the lecture I give on brotherhood. The birth of our Masonic grade of Secret Monitor appears to have occurred in the United States, where it was worked for many years under various titles: Brotherly Love, Jonathan and David, and finally, Secret Monitor. Its first appearance seems to have been in 1850 as a Masonic degree, in which there is clear mention of the grade. The Grand Master of the Allied Masonic degrees in the United States also serves as the presiding officer of this order. With 6 grades, grades 4 to 6, or through 6, are invitational. The Grand Master of the Allied Masonic degrees also serves as the presiding officer of this order. This is also an order recently brought to the United States. The current ancient and Masonic order of the Scarlet Cord is based on an earlier order, the Royal Order of Knights of the Scarlet Cord, developed in the British Isles in 1889, which itself was derived from 18th century documents from the Amsterdam Masonic archives. It was originally appended to the Order of the Secret Monitor that we just discussed. In 2006, a Secret Monitor conclave was consecrated with the sole purpose of reviving the old order and conferring updated versions of the original 6 grades, some of which only remained in fragmented form. The independent order was established in 2010 and subsequently brought to the United States. This is an honor order in the Allied Masonic degrees in the United States, based on either nomination of the local council or offices held in Allied Masonic degrees. This is a remote order said to be derived, notice the way I phrase that, from a very ancient order in Ireland, consisting of Freemasons and said to have been erected and patronized by the kings of Ireland. For it is claimed that in early times, Éire, Ireland, possessed a literature and history equal to that of the most highly developed of the ancient nations. While it is generally accepted that Yarker was at one time the head of the English revived order of the Red Branch of Erie, some records relate that Brother Irwin, IRWN, was Worshipful Master of Inhabitants Lodge number 178 at Gibraltar, and he received the order at the hands of a captain of an American trading vessel, to whom it had purportedly been transmitted from father to son, dating back to 1757, when his Irish forebearer emigrated to New York while a district grand master of the orders. You will recollect it is governed differently in other countries. Many of my comments come directly from websites, and I have provided these, and they can be provided subsequently. Thanks very much. It's my understanding that at this point, we will conclude the direct presentation and proceed to a separate question and answer. Thank you.